It began as usual. Monster invasion. Players rose up to defend their world. This time, among all the fighters, there were two stunning beauties with big, juicy melons. Ignoring these beauties, the glory-obsessed players tried to defeat the next boss. At the Players' Academy, a young guy was standing in front of the magic crystal, waiting to receive a combat profession. The beautiful examiner noticed that the crystal was vibrating. However, our player only received 1 star. After that, the Academy students present could not hide their laughter and began to tease our player. But the protagonist was different from all of them. System notification. The operator finished the awakening and activated the system. The young man's eyes widened in surprise. Now all his abilities will automatically turn into forbidden dark spells. Now he's destined to be the one who bullies the newcomers. After a while, our player was already on his way through the magic portal to fight another bloodthirsty monster. If others start bragging about their power, I will make them regret their words. I now had a golden dragon card, and no one could believe my level. Another hopelessly jealous player thought I had stolen it. In the new battle, I had to fend off the boss's crowning trick, and then he wouldn't stand a chance. But even that cruel monster knew that I was much stronger than him. All of his ridiculous slaves who tried to attack me wouldn't have a chance to survive. Stop pretending. I'm the strongest in the world and I won't hide it anymore. It was another beautiful sunny day at the Institute of Supernatural Abilities. In this spring garden of cherry blossoms, our player was staring at his phone. I believe it was a Dota 2 game. Our player's name was Ning Feng. He was very enthusiastic. I have a huge advantage. How can I lose? Suddenly, a strong palm strike from someone's side shook our main character. The name of this beauty was Wang Yu. The girl thought he was watching adult movies again, or playing on his cell phone. You have to pull yourself together and start studying for your exams. According to our protagonist, he prepares and plays at the same time. Besides, he's already 18. Unlike you, Ms. Wang, you got a 5-star profession at the age of 16. Why should I work hard when I can just cuddle up to your beautiful thighs? Like I'm going to let you do that, you little punk. The girl applied a one-handed chokehold. I can't breathe. The main character barely uttered a word, while all the other players were surprised that Goddess Wang Yu had returned after her special training. Wang Yu was definitely a genius, as she was able to master a 5-star profession at the age of 16. She was also very good-looking. She was from a good family, very beautiful, and incredibly talented. The Academy students present couldn't believe that the Ning Feng next to her was a known loser who hadn't even tried out a normal profession at the age of 18. No one could understand how a divine beauty like Miss Wang could get involved with this scum. It was rumored that they had been friends since childhood. She took my phone. Ouch, you're hurting me. Blue Star is a world where reality and play merge. The 7th Test Center is the location of the 2025 Adventurer Awakening Test. Here, anyone over the age of 16 can awaken their powers and become an adventurer. The students of the Academy had to know some rules of the examination before the miracle of awakening could happen. It was strange for Ning Feng to see Madame Wang take it so seriously. After all, this was the 3rd time he took this test. He's not new anymore. According to the rules, the student whose name is called must enter the test area and undergo a special examination. Those who successfully awaken will be given a set of basic equipment and prepare for a combat ability test. Each of the players presents said aloud that they would like to become a mage, or perhaps some other powerful profession, because a man should be really powerful and tough. In the midst of this incessant noise, only our player remained silent. Suddenly, Madame Wei's stern voice sounded. Ning Feng, 3rd year, you're next. The students present began to giggle. It was that legendary high school senior. Goes everywhere with Goddess Wang Yu. He thinks that if he's around a strong person, he'll be the same. After all, he's still 18 years old and hasn't woken up yet. If I fail the test now, I'm a 100% loser. My examiner was Teacher Chi Wei. She favored me. I couldn't take my eyes off her big, juicy melons. Miss Chi told me to touch the crystal and relax. But how can you relax when there's a hot girl standing next to you? I made an effort and put my hand on the magic stone. For a second, it seemed as if nothing much was happening. But suddenly, the power of the magic crystal made itself known. The entire room around it lit up with a bright blue light. I couldn't believe my eyes. Even Madame Wei was surprised. The crystal was glowing. It resonated with Ningfeng. The blue light meant that this was an ability system. Awakening automatically grants basic abilities. Now, we just have to wait and see how many stars I get. This light was so bright, and it meant great luck for me. I was looking forward to completing this test. New message. 1 star. The acquired skill is Mud Marsh Technique. From Madame Wei's deep exhalation behind my back, I understood her thoughts perfectly. Only 1 star. It's a shame. None of the students held back their emotions. They all started laughing loudly and teasing me. They shouted all kinds of insults and told me that I was, and always would be, utter garbage. And I'll never get a chance to be better. With a stern voice, the examiner turned to me and inquired about my awakened abilities. Poor young man. He can't hear what I'm saying to him. It sounds like a big blow to him. After all these years, he could only get 1 star. Here are your starter clothes. Once you put it on, you can go to the next level. For a while, I was still in shock about everything that was happening. But there was nothing I could do but take what I was given. Suddenly a new message. The operator completed the awakening and activated the system. I had absolutely no understanding of the exact system in question. Ignoring my displeasure, the system informed me that I was getting some abilities. I now have a passive ability. I will not suffer from the use of dark power, and I will gain immunity to all the requirements of using forbidden spells. But isn't that pure evil energy? It's terrible. I couldn't figure out what was going on. Forbidden spells. It's the ultimate magic. What does this have to do with me? One message followed another. Now it was about some kind of transformation. What kind of transformation? I didn't know what it meant. The transformation is complete. An ability called Mud Marsh Technique has been transformed into Forbidden Curse. Foul Earth Shell? I did not like such an inscription. The whole thing sounded a little off. Anyway, I have a combat challenge ahead of me, so I guess it's no big deal. A group of 50 people will enter the dungeon, where everyone will fight monsters and familiarize themselves with the skills they have acquired. Teaming up and attacking other players is prohibited. Drones will be used for surveillance. I heard Miss Wei's voice advising me to confirm my skills as soon as possible. She told me not to worry because only I would see them. I looked at the screen. I had an active ability, a forbidden dark ability. I can summon a dark force that forms a protective barrier that crushes all nearby enemies. This kind of information seems dangerous to me. If it's something bad and others find out, I might get into trouble. Madame Wei's loud voice echoed throughout the room. We walked forward through the magical portal into the unknown. I couldn't stop myself and begged the system to explain what it all meant. In a second, magical swirls of energy would engulf me and I would find myself in another world. No sooner had we teleported than we were immediately attacked by a large pack of angry goblins. The students of the academy set out to repel this powerful assault. I need some time to collect my thoughts and think about what to do next. For now, I can't make any noise, lest those green monsters see me. This whole clearing is being watched by drones. I can't just use a forbidden dark spell. However, I have no other way to fight, so we have to hide and wait. At that time, one of the officers at the command center was annoyed that all the players were fighting and killing monsters while this guy was sitting on the sidelines. It was Captain Zhou. Captain, this boy is in poor health and has late awakening abilities. He only has 1 defensive spell in his arsenal, which is not suitable for direct confrontation, Madame Wei said in her sweet and calm voice. She stood up for her disciple. Such an answer did not satisfy the captain. Even he was not impressed by Miss Wei's beauty. He recommended that the student be taken back and not allowed to take the test again. However, in the next second, everyone was suddenly surprised and couldn't believe their eyes. Suddenly, the drone's communication was lost. An alarm was sounded as a powerful power surge was detected in the dungeon, far exceeding the average threat level of monsters. One of the players fell to the ground and wet his pants in fear. How could such a powerful monster be here? In front of this young warrior's eyes was a huge, mighty goblin that looked like Wolverine with its huge metal blades. "Stand up, brothers. Stop being their slaves and obey my orders," the green monster commanded. He then shouted loudly that all invaders were destined to die in this place and called his warriors to launch a group attack. The last drone didn't stand a chance. With a single movement of his hand, the Green Lord instantly destroyed this electronic bird. I have absolutely no idea why the drone suddenly went down, how that could have happened. Suddenly, there was a noise behind my back. I think I've been discovered. Those green things managed to find me. I don't understand why there are so many monsters. It seems that their leader was in the middle of that crowd. But wait, what a great opportunity for a reality check on dark technology. The drone is down, and no one else is watching what I'm about to do. My gaze changes dramatically, and I cast a spell. Swirls of energy and lightning began to spin around my body. The Green Lord's gaze froze in confusion. He hadn't expected to see such a thing. My magic shield became so powerful that I easily turned all the monsters present into my obedient skeletons. At that time, no one in the command center understood how they had lost contact with all the drones. The captain asked for a situation report, but no one realized what was going on. Even Madame Wei didn't understand what was going on. King-level monsters were capable of destroying an entire city. Where did such a terrifying creature come from in this area? At that time, the Green Lord in the dungeon was horrified by everything that was happening. All the other goblins that were present in this forest died at the hands of their former kin and now obedient slaves of our main character. So this is what forbidden spells look like. Cool. I can't believe my eyes. I have so much power. A huge wave of my powerful energy destroyed one goblin after another. I got more and more system notifications. I was getting a huge amount of experience points for killing goblin soldiers. Even I was afraid of what was happening. The power I possessed was so great. Is a human capable of such a thing? Finally, my obedient warriors got to the head goblin. He couldn't move. In the next second, my mighty power descended upon him. He managed to shout something, but I didn't hear it. The outcome of the battle was a foregone conclusion. A powerful flash of lightning illuminated everything around him. System notification. You have gained 6,000 experience points for killing a veteran goblin. Hey, that was just the start of a long series. If you enjoyed it, please like this video and let me know what you think by writing Dota 2 in the comments. Thanks. I got a mage profession and now I was level 10. Of course, I was very happy, because before, players only went up 1 to 2 levels. I got most of my experience from the elite monsters, but I still didn't understand where they came from in this zone. At that moment, the loot I had gotten started falling from the sky to the ground. I was surprised to see 2 orange objects. It was an emblem that permanently increased traits. They were also the claws of a shadow assassin. An incredibly valuable item. Everything is going according to my plan. Soon I will be very rich. A loud notification sound informed me to use the teleportation scrolls to evacuate and stop the combat test immediately. I still couldn't figure out what had happened. Everything around me was scorched. Perhaps it was the power of the forbidden spells. There were huge holes everywhere. It would be terrible if someone found out about this, so let's run. Almost all the players teleported to the safe zone at the same time, including our protagonist. One of the officers ordered an immediate return to the city. His concern was that the monster was very strong and reinforcements might not arrive in time. But in the next second, the source of the dark power suddenly disappeared. Teacher Chi contacted the command center to report the current situation. I tried to approach her, but she interrupted me with a stern voice and ordered me to evacuate to a safe place. Sometime later, already in the city, I discussed the events with my friend. I didn't understand where such a source of immense power could come from. Was it really the elite goblin? The girl understood my worried look. These events had deeply affected me. She suggested that I join her team so that I wouldn't waste my defensive spells. I told her that wasn't necessary because I could handle it myself. If only she knew how much power I have. But I can't use forbidden spells in front of strangers. In a stern voice, she informed me that she was expecting me at the West Gate tomorrow at 8 p.m. Before I could say a word, she turned and walked away. Are all women so stubborn? Why does she ignore me? Even if I pretend to be sick, she still won't believe me. I think there's another way, but I'm not sure it will work. Now I went to the stock exchange to sell something. I really wanted to sneak around and buy the right equipment with built-in abilities. But most importantly, I wanted to sell the loot from the elite monsters. I was greeted by a beautiful woman with large breasts. Are all the girls here like that? I quickly informed the hottie that I wanted to buy equipment that would allow me to use my special ability. However, an experienced saleswoman advised me not to waste my time and money on something simple and to buy the more expensive items right away. I immediately declined her offer, and she decided to pass me on to someone else. Did she really call me a beggar? At that moment, a very pretty girl approached me and asked me how she could help me. She then showed me the items and weapons she had in her possession. The heavy sword, he could not lift it. I heard laughter behind me. I finally made up my mind and took out my gold ring and thanked the girl for her help. But that wasn't all. Now I wanted to sell something, and she agreed to take me to the place. This was the floor of the Special Assessment Committee. I was greeted by a grumpy-looking man who looked in my direction without any interest. But after I pulled out the golden claws, his look and tone changed drastically. He could not believe that he was holding an orange-level weapon. It was the perfect weapon for beginners. The merchant asked what I wanted in return, but I was only interested in the crystals. The bigger the better. Anticipating a good income, the man smiled broadly and left me and the girl alone for a while. We hadn't had a chance to finish our green tea when he came back with good news. He had just sold those golden claws to a customer for 50,000 crystals. It was a lot of money. After the commission, I will get 46,000 crystals. The girl looked at me as if I was rich. Now there were some paperwork formalities left, after which I could buy in full. Meanwhile, the manager who had refused me was discussing with her friends why she had done so. She liked very rich customers. Suddenly, they all saw our protagonist accompanied by Mr. Wong. Their tone of voice changed dramatically. They couldn't believe that it was the same guy who had just sold such a valuable item. The girl had obviously missed out on a rich client. Of course, she wanted to serve that customer now, but it was too late to change her mind. At that time, a cute girl named Jan said goodbye to me and wished me well. Next time I can go directly to her. The next day in my new clothes, I felt like Conor McGregor before the fight. I tried out my new abilities yesterday, and the system won't transform them. That was great news. Now I don't have to worry about being discovered. I spotted the beautiful Wong and quickly greeted her. But this time, my old friend was not alone. She was accompanied by a shield-wielding man, a wizard, a berserker, and a beautiful priestess with huge breasts. These people were all members of her guild, and they greeted me, except for the two guys who looked in my direction with some disdain. They looked as if I owed them a lot of money. Suddenly, the mage decided to give this beauty an interesting gift. From what he said, I understood that the profession could be changed every 30 levels. Did this girl really have her 60th? At that moment, the wizard revealed a green glass vial in his hand, filled with some kind of liquid. It turned out to be a high-level potion that permanently increased dexterity by 3 units. The other guild members couldn't believe their eyes. This potion must be very expensive. With a scornful grin, the wizard replied that it wasn't the money that mattered, but the fact that it had been inherited from his father, who had been searching for it for a long time. Suddenly, Wang Yu refused his gift and said that she could do without the potion. I think she was just humiliating him to my delight. That asshole was obviously very upset, because behind my back, I heard some bad words directed at me. The girl turned to the wizard and told him to watch his tongue. However, the man in the blue outfit continued to mock me, saying that my level was too low. Why did he suddenly attack me like that? Completely incomprehensible. She shouldn't have interfered in a man's conversation. The wizard rudely told her to mind her own business. Zhao Qing ordered me with an insolent voice to get out of his sight. I compared this rude man to a rabid dog, and he became even angrier with me. The magician decided to argue with me. If I have something better than his potion, he will kneel before me. But if I don't have anything of value, then I will kneel. In that case, he better get ready, because I've got my very valuable reward. It was a rare orange item that permanently increased stats. Even the experienced warrior opened her mouth in surprise. She had never seen anything like this before. The other guild members were equally surprised. They couldn't believe that such an item existed. At that moment, I realized who was going to kneel before me. I lied to Wang Yu that I found this item in my house. Now, it's her gift. Everyone couldn't wait to see what would happen when she tried on the orange jewel. Mighty streams of golden light illuminated everything around them. Of course, everyone was very surprised, but the wizard was the most surprised. Looking at him, I knew exactly what was going to happen. With a smile, the girl happily reported that her characteristics had indeed increased. She was overjoyed, but these two still did not believe me and thought I had stolen the item. I thought I'd tease them a bit. They screamed so loudly that I could hardly hear them. It was too late for the wizard to retract his words. Otherwise, other experienced warriors wouldn't understand such behavior. At that moment, I felt great joy. It was a public humiliation. As if I didn't care what he did, I turned around and left with the girl. I later explained to her that what had happened would not affect our relationship. I told this beauty that I would be very happy if she got into a better academy. Oh, these girls, they always think they're the cause of all the trouble. But I convinced her that I was fine. Suddenly, she had an interesting gift for me as well. It turned out to be a book of special spells. All the spells were of purple quality. It was a token of appreciation for the orange item I had given her. Well, in that case, I accept the gift. We are transported to a new dungeon, a sinister graveyard. The place was as dark as it could be, and only the dead could rise from the ground and frighten everyone around them with their appearance. But a moment later, someone's accurate shot stripped the two monsters of their heads. It turned out to be the arrows of Wang Yu, who was remarkably skilled with her bow. However, at this point, I felt helpless. I had already reached level 10, but I couldn't do anything about it. Suddenly, the phone in the girl's pocket rang. It informed her that a powerful boss named Fallen Lich was about to appear in the graveyard. It was quite a rare event. Nevertheless, the guild members expressed their support and were willing to help her. The girl with the yellow gloves and pink hair wanted to know if Wang Yu would participate in the raid. The wizard was all for it, since it would allow him to get a valuable and necessary item for himself. But the guild leader was still thinking about it. Understanding her thoughts, I told her she could go, and we would continue our training a little later. She agreed and advised me to return to the safe zone. Okie dokie, baby, I was just waiting for that answer. As we parted, I told Mistress Minter to be more careful, but my words only made her angrier. I was finally alone with a strong boss. Now I can do whatever I want. Just yesterday, I managed to learn 2 abilities in time to use them alternately. The first is a passive ability, a secret gift. Once a week, you can use a band spell for free. I started to warm up and crack my fingers. Unfortunately, I have 3 ability boards so far. It was an ominous graveyard, a place crawling with bloodthirsty monsters. The party realized that the main boss would appear in the tower, so they should have gone there. But at that moment, there was a huge explosion. A bright flash illuminated everything around them. It turned out that the other team was already ahead of them, and they didn't know how they did it. The members of that clan saw their rivals from the Rugged Lion Guild. Everyone marveled at their superior skills. At that time, our guild members were selflessly fighting against the many monsters in the area. The wizard was eager to meet the boss and get the item he needed. He used his magic to destroy a large number of monsters. The party members noticed that the guild leader had become much stronger after receiving the gift. We are transported to the heart of the dungeon, where a large tower stands. Suddenly, a portal appeared next to this tower, and our protagonist emerged through it. Now, thanks to spells, I can use transformation for my abilities. I had to fight a scary and dangerous monster that was the subject of many legends. However, the sight of this monster did not scare me at all. It tried to attack me by directing a huge amount of energy in my direction. There was a huge explosion, and the monster rejoiced, thinking that he had succeeded in destroying me. But in the next second, I teleported right behind its back to give it a surprise. I am going to take all this loot from the main boss and not share it with anyone. At that moment, with a slight movement of my hand, I activated another ability and unleashed a fiery heavenly rain. Huge purple cobblestones began to fly at the monster with tremendous speed. More and more explosions rang out near the tower, destroying it to the ground. However, this magic did not harm me at all. I just stood there and waited for the battle to end. More messages appeared, saying that I had received a large number of points. But the biggest prize is that I got 50,000 experience points. And now I was level 30. There were so many items, and they were all so interesting that I happily started collecting them in my inventory. I'm going to keep this interesting item. It might come in handy, even if it lowers my stamina. At this point, the new system message surprised me. I can now activate the arcane profession of necromancer or the arcane ability of my current profession of god of magic. Hidden professions are very rare and are only given at birth. As those purple clumps continued to fall to the ground, I was incredibly excited about everything that had happened. Meanwhile, the members of the Fierce Lions Guild suddenly discovered that a purple aura had appeared near them, posing a great danger to them. They didn't know that this terrifying aura belonged to our hero. They had to stop and retreat immediately. The wizard was against this decision, still hoping to get the item he needed. However, this time, he wasn't so lucky. The girl is about to warn Ningfeng, but it turned out that he had sent her a message a little while ago that he was going somewhere on urgent business. It was very strange. After a while, the protagonist arrived at a special career change room. He went in and found that no one was there. He was met by a charming girl, also with large breasts. She asked him why he had come here. I replied that I was here for a career change. She asked for my details. I knew exactly what she was thinking. After all, I didn't wake up until I was 18. It wasn't a good result. Then she suggested that I go where the magical professions were. I was alone in this incredibly beautiful hall. The girl told me to just follow the instructions. But at that moment, someone else appeared. It turned out that the captain had heard the alarm and led his troops to this ominous graveyard. This was the second day in a row that such a powerful force had manifested itself. That's why his superiors sent him here. Something had to be done immediately. He needed a warrior, a true loner. Now my profession is necromancer, and I have to enter a new dungeon to get an item called Crown of Bloody Souls. 3 days. I also had a preliminary mission. You had to go into a dungeon called Temple of the Holy Sun and get a quest item called Holy Emblem. The deadline was 3 days. There wasn't much choice, so I decided to start with a pre-mission. New message. Mission received successfully. Please verify the information provided. With a quick and confident step, I began to descend the stairs. Into a new world. Into a new unknown. I waved goodbye to this full-breasted beauty and thanked her for her help. Although for a moment I thought I was being greeted by a completely different girl. We are transported to the site of the ruined tower. The captain was able to find a lone warrior, a girl with special abilities. She was a member of a special secret organization whose members all had hidden professions. The girl could not concentrate and her head hurt badly. There was still a lot of dark energy here. You can feel it even after it dissipates. She informed the 2 officers that she had found no clues. Apparently, the source of the energy was already gone. But the man was interested in the details, as such anomalies had become more frequent lately. It foreshadowed disaster. It was hard for her to speak because she still had a headache. She'll call for reinforcements and come back later. But the man with the glasses was interested in the source of the outbreak of this power. Was it really a monster? It turned out that this girl was a mutant, and such words offended her a bit. She turned to the men and said that the threat level was indeed powerful, and human flesh could not withstand the enormous flow of the power of darkness. So it turned out that the city was hiding a monster that could cause a catastrophe at any moment. The girl confirmed the man's speculation. In that case, we must find this monster as soon as possible. We are transported to Ningfeng's house. The protagonist has opened new skill panels, so now he should study the 2 books the girl gave him earlier. Through the training, he was able to gain new skills and abilities. The young man was overjoyed. It turned out that forbidden spells could be combined with low-level techniques. The system messages changed one by one. It was now revealed that he had gained a new skill, as well as the passive ability to use the earth element. I still have 4 more ability slots. Time to hit the market again. A beautiful sunny day and a beautiful stock exchange building. This time I walked in with a confident stride, my hands in my pockets. I walked past the girl who rejected me last time without paying attention to her. But that cheeky girl blocked my way. I explained that I wanted Yang Xing. She deliberately bent over so that I could see her large breasts. It seems that Yang Xin is busy today, but that woman's magic didn't work on me. I should look for Yang Xin's girlfriend myself. I could feel the energy of anger behind my back. I've already rejected this beauty, but she quickly changed her mind and tried to catch up with me to help me since I was a customer of hers. But at that moment, Yang Xing ran towards me. Barely out of breath, she informed me that she had been a little busy. She was having lunch. She heard that I was coming, so she came running. I told her that in return for her help, I wanted to take her out to dinner. She was happy to hear that. The girl next to her couldn't believe it and was jealous. I would also like to sell 2 skill books and stock up on new skills. The merchant was more friendly this time and said he would take care of everything. The man realized that he was facing a difficult war. Last time he brought orange weapons. Today he brought purple skill books. Meanwhile, we continued to eat and laugh with Yang Xing, and the evening was ours. I asked the waiter to bring us the bill, but Yang Xing replied that she had already paid for everything. It turned out that she had a good reason for doing so. I didn't understand what she meant. She never answered me and just giggled that it was a secret. Like a true gentleman, I wanted to see her off, but Yang Xing replied that she had somewhere else to go. Already in the car, the girl told the driver that she wanted to be taken to the second city hospital. It turned out that thanks to Ning Feng, she had been able to earn a lot of money and was now able to take good care of her father. But suddenly, the sharp bang of a car interrupted all her thoughts. The girl's entire body was in shock, and the driver was already dead. She could see that a huge portal had appeared in the sky, and many monsters had entered the city through it. These terrifying monsters began to attack people and cars around her. The girl made a bold decision and quickly jumped out of the car, hitting the pavement hard. She didn't understand where monsters could come from in the safe zone of the city. At that moment, she heard the clash of the bloodthirsty monster's teeth behind her back. Suddenly, someone else began to descend through the portal in the sky. It was a man who didn't look like a monster. He had a kind of evil, caustic smile on his face and a glowing pendant around his neck. At that moment, a massive explosion rang out. It was a special magic meant for monsters. But it seems that this girl's technique didn't help much. The monster became very angry and began to attack its abuser. It looked like she was going to die. But suddenly, the monster's head flew away. Someone's powerful sword stroke saved the girl from imminent death. With a stern voice, the man ordered the girl to seek shelter. As she ran away, Yang Xing saw that everything around her began to rot. The dungeon is merging with the real world. Looking at the remains of these monsters, the man realized that an ordinary man could not handle them. It seems that the worst suspicions have indeed come true. There was a powerful monster lurking in the city. A sharp blow from someone's paw interrupted the warrior's thoughts. Thanks to his skills, he was able to jump aside in time. And in the next second, he saw the mutated man in front of him. His right hand was a huge claw that radiated magical power. The mutant called himself the Chosen One of the Dark Force, but the man did not share his enthusiasm. After a moment, he tried to deliver his powerful blow. But thanks to his right arm, the mutant was able to strike back, throwing the warrior a long way. The experienced fighter realized that he was not doing well. The mutant's strength was much greater than his. The mutant informed the warrior that he was in his territory, so now he was going to die. With that, he made a mighty leap forward and prepared to deliver his crushing blow. The mutant was beyond excited. He shouted loudly that he was now incredibly strong. But someone's demonic and loud voice from above informed him that there was no need to be so narcissistic. This creature from above was giving him strength, and without it, he would be just an ordinary, pathetic worm. At that moment, through that very crack in the sky, the powerful monster our heroes spoke of earlier appeared. The mutant knelt before his master. He was ordered to prove that he was indeed useful. All the people of the city had to be sacrificed. Let this be the monster's appearance to the world. With a shy voice, the mutant replied that the order would be honored. At that moment, Ning Feng had just finished his toilet business and came out of the toilet. But in the next second, the young man was overcome with shock. As soon as he retreated into the toilet, something unbelievable happened. There were many monsters and human corpses. One of those terrifying monsters saw our protagonist and rushed to attack and destroy Ning Feng. But suddenly, a huge spike emerged from under the hero's feet and pierced through the terrifying monster. It was a special spell from a book called Wall of Earth Spikes. It's a good thing I splurged on this weapon. It enhances my earth spells. Now, When the protagonist went out into the street, he saw a horrible sight. The city had turned into a dungeon, and there were a huge number of monsters around. At that moment, the mutant spotted Ningfeng and ran towards him. He made a sharp lunge forward and tried to grab the protagonist with his right hand. For a moment, the mutant thought that he had succeeded in his plan, but the young man surprised him. At that moment, an energy cocoon formed around his body, preventing him from being destroyed. The protagonist was able to block the mutant's attack. The main monster watched our player. It realized that he possessed powerful energy and strength. The hidden monster was very surprised. The energy level of the main character was much higher than his. The very breath of death emanated from Ningfeng. At this moment, the young man closed his eyes and meditated deeply. Looks like I'll have to cast the forbidden spell right here in the city. The next second, as soon as he opened his eyes, a powerful flash of bright light destroyed the hideous claw on the mutant's right arm. The monstrous villain couldn't believe what had happened. He called out to his master for help, but no one helped him because all the monsters were trying to get out of town through that very rift in the sky. They ran away, afraid of such a powerful burst of energy. The protagonist was left alone with the mutant, who was exhausted and did not understand what had happened. Ningfeng's eyes shone brightly with a purple light. This was not a good sign for his enemy. So-called mutants were those who were given the profession of darkness during the awakening process. They can wield the power of darkness, which makes them stronger than any other profession at the same level. At the same time, once they lose the protection of the power of darkness, they become ordinary people. At that moment, Ningfeng destroyed his opponent. Luckily, I can concentrate on the attack without worrying about the defense. I'll quickly collect my loot and leave before anyone notices me. Some parts of the city have been reduced to rubble. It seems that the monsters have retreated and the invasion of the kingdom has stopped. The girl noticed that things looked rather strange. Too many coincidences. She learned from her assistant's report that the rest of the city was still safe. In the south of the city, however, things weren't going so well. It was under the command of Captain Zhao. At that moment, one of the experienced warriors was examining the remains of a dead mutant. He was well aware that all of the mutant's belongings had been stolen. Suddenly, a woman's voice sounded behind him, ordering him to introduce himself and state his name. He showed his gold badge and said he was a member of the Cloud Kingdom squad. His name was Duan. It was an unofficial organization consisting only of fighters. She understood that the members of this organization operated in the shadows, so she wanted to ask the man why he was here. The warrior looked at the dead mutant and said that he was here because of him. It turned out that the mutant had been in his group before, but he had betrayed the organization. The girl gave him a stern look. Could it be that the invasion stopped when the mutant died? The man replied that he didn't know for sure. They still didn't understand who could have killed this mutant. The veteran warrior told the girls that the mutant liked to hide in the space of the kingdom, so it was hard to find him. After his words, the beauty added that Captain Zhou, who was in that place, had most likely died with his army, killing a powerful enemy and preventing an invasion of the kingdom. Is it true that there is such a unique person in the city? The man turned around and started to leave the place. He went in search of it. We're being taken to Ningfeng's house. At that time, the young man was in joyful emotions within the walls of his apartment. The protagonist received an orange outfit from a dead mutant. It was a special breastplate as well as pants. However, all of these things required a high level as well as being a fighter. Although it looked strange, this mutant didn't even wear these items. Anyway, I'd have to use forbidden spells to defeat him. This pendant looks strange. It doesn't even have a quality. There are only unknown parameters in the information. I hope there isn't some ancient god or something hidden inside. But this was no ordinary pendant. It turned out to be an intelligence device for the monster world. At that moment, a powerful deity was watching our hero through his crystal ball. At the other end of the communication line, panic gripped the monsters. The order was given to cut off communication immediately. They must not reveal their position. The main monster was terrified. He thought that their location had already been revealed and they'd all been discovered. Meanwhile, we're going to the city hospital. Captain Zhou was lucky to survive. He told me that they were rescued by a young fighter. The man added that as soon as the enemy saw this fighter, the monsters created a crack in the sky through which they fled to their world. He added that this man's strength was not beneath him, but much higher. The bespectacled man couldn't understand how the mutant the whole world was looking for had been killed by someone very mysterious. According to the girl, this mysterious character might not have been registered anywhere, so they didn't know about his existence. Besides, there was nothing in that place but traces of ordinary magic. In the officer's opinion, it would be much calmer with such an experienced and strong warrior at their side. The man in the black suit announced that he had an idea. We should find the remnants of the dark power and study them. According to the man's assumption, the unknown warrior could have been one of the mutants. He also used 2 devastating spells, but they caused no casualties. In this case, it meant only one thing. But the officer didn't let him finish, because he knew exactly what he wanted to say. The girl hesitated, deep in thought. Meanwhile, the protagonist approached the special building and greeted the guards. He wanted to complete a mission for a career change. After a short time, our hero reached the Temple of the Holy Sun. But he wasn't alone here. Someone else was watching him. That someone was the well-known warrior doing. A few days ago at the stock exchange, Master Wong was visited by a warrior from the Cloud Kingdom. The merchant greeted him and asked the young man what he wanted to buy. The mercurial girl immediately grabbed a handsome man with a high level. She wanted all of his money. The merchant reported that the warrior's equipment consisted only of a breastplate and pants, but the young man was only interested in the customer who wanted to sell it. The merchant smiled and replied that his customer was busy today and could not come in. At this point, the experienced warrior realized that everything was falling into place perfectly. The suit the merchant spoke of was most likely a relic of the master. The young man insisted on his own. He was willing to pay for customer information. Mr. Wong was upset. It was a strange coincidence. Just when Ning Feng said that he was going to sell the suit, another guy showed up. It's as if they had planned it all. The peddler tried to calm the young man down and said that he would try to contact his client now. But as soon as Duan left this luxurious office, Mr. Wong was overcome with a severe headache. He asked someone to look into Ning Feng's biography. It turned out that the main character's parents died in an accident when he was a teenager, leaving him alone. He went to high school and woke up at the age of 18. The girl added that she had always suspected that there was something wrong with this young man. The girl turned to her boss, not understanding where the protagonist could have gotten all these items. Suddenly, a terrible thought struck the full-breasted beauty. She thought that this set of items and clothes could be stolen. The merchant was sure that the young man had obtained the set illegally and was now in big trouble. But the girl was happy in her thoughts. She assumed that the kit had been stolen after all. Meanwhile, we were transported to the site of the sacred Sun Temple. A warrior from the Cloud Kingdom was watching the main character. He found it hard to believe that such a young boy could resist the invasion of an entire kingdom. According to his information, it is our hero who should have the master's relic. However, the place is very dangerous, so it pays to be careful. Upon entering the main temple, the young man saw a large number of heroes fighting spherical-looking monsters. The protagonist raised his hand to put on the appropriate equipment, much to the delight of the warrior watching him. But Duan wasn't surprised by our hero's appearance. It was too ordinary. Maybe the clothes were a disguise. The experienced warrior realized that this guy might be deliberately hiding his whereabouts. They should be careful and keep their distance. He decided to take precautions and activated a special ability. The spiritual perception that marked the target in his mind was invisible to others. Meanwhile, the protagonist was about to enter the temple. However, as soon as Ning Feng stepped inside, a powerful energy stream descended upon him. He barely had time to put up a protective shield. The warrior watching him couldn't believe his eyes. It was simply unreal. The monsters avoided the protagonist. He was truly a very challenging character. Finally, Ning Feng reached the main boss. The warrior watching him thought that a battle was about to break out, but the statue remained a statue. The man sat motionless. Not only that, beads of sweat were running down the face of the statue, as if it was afraid of someone. However, Ning Feng bypassed this statue. He was looking for something else entirely. I think this is where the boss is. I have arrived at the right place. A huge flying knight appeared in front of his eyes. It was the hidden head boss of this building. They noticed each other. After a moment, the flying knight opened his eyes. Mighty streams of light began to pour out. However, instead of fighting the protagonist, it began to fly away. Ningfeng didn't understand why this knight was running away from him. Looking at everything from the side, Duan couldn't believe his eyes. Was it really a hidden boss? A system message appeared in front of our hero's eyes. Now he had to obtain a special item, destroy the hidden temple boss, and then the task would be complete. The protagonist prepared for battle. An evil grin appeared on his face. No one was following him. He was ready for battle. Meanwhile, the flying knight couldn't find a place to go and tried to escape. He was very afraid. At this point, lightning and thunder began to appear above the building. As this knight flew under the ceiling of the building, Ningfeng stood motionless below, preparing to strike the flying bird with his magic. The young man activated his skills. New announcement: the descent of thunderous rain, a dark spell, summoning a huge thunderstorm with the power of the heavens. A large red eye appeared directly above the tower, and a moment later, an incredibly powerful stream of light descended upon the flying knight, turning him to ash. This was our hero's magic. At that moment, the temple began to collapse, sending huge chunks of stone flying in all directions. Cold sweat ran down the back of the warrior in green armor. He could not believe his eyes. The once mighty building was crumbling right before his eyes. He had never seen such destructive magic before. It was very frightening. Meanwhile, standing at the ruins of the majestic structure, the protagonist regretted the wasted energy. However, he obtained a necessary and valuable item for himself. Now he was ready to complete the mission. He held the sacred emblem, the orange level. It increased spiritual attributes forever. It also permanently increased the healing effect by 100%. Just as our hero was about to use the teleportation scroll to return home, a loud voice sounded behind him. A cold sweat ran down the protagonist's back. Did that man really see everything? Where did he come from? Duan was also terrified. The sight of our hero did not bode well. The experienced warrior immediately tried to find the positive in the situation and tried to explain everything. But no sooner had he started his conversation than a loud alarm sounded. Therefore, the protagonist suggested that they get out of this dangerous place first and then continue their conversation. A moment later, they found themselves in a quiet, deserted forest. Ningfeng was curious if this young man had really followed him all the way here. The warrior continued to reassure our protagonist and replied that he just wanted to see his magical abilities. After that, Duan told the protagonist about his master, who had incredible strength. However, he was only able to temporarily seal the hole in the sky. The traitor still managed to escape. For many years, the traitor used people as sacrifices to break the seal in heaven. He pursued him for a very long time, but to no avail. The protagonist was bored listening to this story, but he noticed the warrior's hidden abilities. Because of my low level, I couldn't see it. With my pumping speed, my exposure is only a matter of time. The warrior was scared again. Our hero suddenly fell silent. Did this mean that he too was destined to be silenced forever? Suddenly, he told the protagonist that he thanked him for avenging his master. And now, if Ningfeng ever needed anything, he was willing to help. The protagonist realized that the warrior in front of him was a high-level warrior, and he was also a loner. This might be very useful in the future. He asked his interlocutor to keep everything secret so that no one would know what had happened today. Duan was well aware that his interlocutor also deserved respect. Despite his low level, he was able to defend and save an entire city. After that, they traveled back to the city in silence. Suddenly, the phone in the protagonist's pocket rang. It was Teacher Chi asking where Ningfeng was now. The pretty girl told her student that she was very eager to meet him, to get some details from him. The young man realized that her call was very unexpected, and her voice sounded strange. It looked suspicious. It turned out that the initiator of the call wasn't Chi's disciple at all, but the girl sitting idly on the sofa. According to Madam Chi, Ningfeng's tone was quite agitated. Something must be wrong. The young man is about to return to the city. A student who had awakened only a few days ago had achieved his first transformation. Teacher Chi stood up to defend her disciple. According to her, Ning Feng has a good character. He studies hard, and she believes that he's not a bad person. A short time later, at a special meeting, the initial situation was to keep an eye on everything around us. Is it possible that the 2 destructive spells in the city were caused by mutants? Everyone in the room began to look around. A man with a gray mustache turned to the girl. How can you ask such a question when you're a mutant yourself? Mutants use dark magic. There is a cost to this. The more powerful the mutant, the higher the cost. The girl closed her eyes as if she was being scolded like a delinquent child. A man with blue hair spoke. It turned out that the girl was a classmate of his. He marveled at her imagination, but she became more and more confused. In her defense, the beauty replied that she was considering all options. So it was up to him to decide what to believe and what not to believe. But the man was adamant. I think she's still trying to argue. In his opinion, she's just incompetent and can't figure things out. He laughed. After all, if a king-level mutant really existed, he'd be willing to cut off his head and let everyone else play with his sword. The older man added with an exhale in his voice that they had already dispatched an investigation team. If necessary, this group can do all the work. The girl became angry. She had the feeling that they simply didn't trust her. However, the councilman assured her that she just had to wait a little longer and be patient. At that moment, someone else burst into the room. It turns out that the Shining Temple realm in Luanbua City has been attacked by destructive magic, but there are no casualties yet. It seemed to be the same place where Ning Feng had registered his training place during the investigation. Now, the picture was clear. Yes, this was indeed the Temple of Radiance. Everything seems to fit. In this case, things will be much more interesting. We are transported to the town of Luanbua. A frightened crowd is discussing the new security barrier that has been erected over the city. Only our protagonist and his new friend remained calm. A defense official said that the barrier had been upgraded to the highest level, so dark forces can't get in. It turns out that my recent disturbances have caused alarm at the highest levels. We must wait for things to calm down before proceeding. But at that moment, right above the city, a crack appeared high in the sky, and through that crack, monsters began to appear. Even those monstrous creatures were surprised by such a powerful defense barrier. The number of monsters only increased, and there was an army of them. They were very ferocious and determined to destroy all living things. One of the commanders of this detachment gave the order to launch an attack. In response, countless ugly creatures rushed forward. It turned out that the protective barrier was no problem for these monsters. They were able to enter easily. A second later, the flying creatures began to attack the humans, taking their lives one by one. The crowd panicked and rushed out to escape. Everyone tried to save their lives. No one could understand how these monsters could get in, since the barrier wasn't damaged. A few warriors stood in defense of the city, raising their weapons as the crowd ran away in fear. Our hero's new friend stepped forward and activated his defensive shield. A veteran fighter reported that there seemed to be a new, high-intensity invasion that had occurred in another city last night. They began to confer and thought about intervening in these events. Duan thought for a while. After all, our protagonist could easily do it alone. Why does he ask for his help? Apparently, it was just a test that he passed successfully. This warrior called our protagonist the boss. And now the boss will take care of everything himself. It's better this way because I can't intervene yet. There are too many people. There may be unnecessary casualties. Suddenly, a powerful stream of energy hit the ground. One of the monster commanders was carefully watching everything that was happening and the actions of the humans. At that moment, the arrows released by one of the warriors were already flying towards the monster. Unfortunately, the young man's magic arrows did not reach the monster's body. But it was only a distraction, because behind his back, a knight with a huge sword appeared. A powerful energy strike, and this knight flew away with a great loss of blood. His sword was shattered into small pieces. No one understood how this was possible, since the knight couldn't even touch this monster. The bloodthirsty creature scratched the ground with its huge weapon. It was a disappointment to him. He had thought that at least one of the humans would be his equal in strength. The crowd scattered to the side. Everyone was terrified. People cried out for help, and screamed in fear. The fearsome creature raised its weapon high to destroy another victim. A sharp swing of a terrifying paw. But in the same second, the monster's strike was blocked by the blue energy of the strong hero. As it turned out, it was Duan who was able to form a defensive block. The monster was very surprised. He hadn't expected such a reaction. Even though the boss doesn't need my protection, since I'm here, I'm ready to take care of everything myself, the young man said to himself. The horrible creature with the sinister voice marveled at this man's brazen prank. At that moment, a desperate battle began between our hero and the terrible beast. It was the first time the monster felt the blows of such a powerful weapon. He was deeply shocked by the abilities of this warrior. The veteran fighter flew toward the monster, revealing his sharp blades. His eyes were filled with red energy. In the next instant, Duan struck out with his weapon so quickly and powerfully that it was like a spider's web, piercing every possible part of the monster's body. Landing on the ground, the young man slowed down. It seemed that this battle was over. No one could believe their eyes. That warrior was surprisingly strong. The young man walked away from the scene with his back turned, showing by his appearance that he was the victor. Now we know a bit more about this warrior. His level was 137. He was a legendary class martial artist. Even our hero was very surprised by such a performance. Yes, this warrior is worthy of being called my friend. The monster leader has been defeated. Now the players can fight back. Duan asked our hero if there was anything else he could do for him. In response, the warrior received approval of his actions and a thumbs up. As the protagonist showered his new friend with compliments, they were watched by a crowd of people discussing everything that was going on. At that moment, Duan showed his boss the loot that fell out after the battle. These were orange level items. The people couldn't believe their eyes. Such items were worth tens of thousands of crystals. Among the prices, there was a book of skill. It would be perfect for Wang Yu, our hero decided. He also got a demon shield, which he can sell later. At that moment, two of our warriors were approached by a detachment from this city. They wanted to talk to them. An obese man also appeared and thanked our hero for his help in saving the city. It was the mayor of Luanbua City. He remarked that our heroes didn't look like locals. The young man replied that they had come here on business, but were stuck here and could not leave. The mayor should have known why they were here, because of a high-level alert. The man bowed again and said it was all their fault. The mayor decided to give our heroes a gift. He asked the assistant to bring the scroll of flight. It was a very precious and rare item. The young man's eyes widened. The scroll can only be used once, but it can move a short distance very quickly. Knowing that the city's defenses were very weak, the mayor asked the heroes to stay here for a few more days. With an annoyed voice, the protagonist replied that he had a very busy schedule, so they could not grant his request. Doesn't the mayor realize that they have a lot of important things to do themselves? At that moment, the assistant brought the very same fast travel scroll. But there was something else. The mayor stretched out his arms and gave our player a black card from the mall as a thank you. Ningfeng's eyes widened again, for this was a very status gift. Such a card is only given to a select few and grants various privileges. Ningfeng finally smiled and said a short thank you. The mayor was happy to see this reaction from his guests. He'll finally stop sweating. After such flattery and compliments, he tried again to ask for their help if needed. With a soft voice, Ningfeng replied that he would definitely help if he had the time. The city officials were thrilled to hear this. At last, the city of Luanbua will be saved. A moment later, our two heroes used a displacement scroll and flew away. Meanwhile, we are transported to the city where the transformation hall was located. The guild representatives were happy that Wang Yu had come out. They wanted to know the result of her visit. However, the girl had a kind of worried and puzzled look on her face. At that moment, something very fast and lightning flashed over her head. The mage noticed her uneasiness and asked what was wrong. The girl replied that she felt like two people flew by, and one of them seemed to be Ningfeng. The man laughed, because a beggar like Ningfeng could not afford such an expensive scroll. Wang Yu did not like his words. With a threatening look, she told him that if he said something bad again, he would regret it. The mage himself was not happy about the constant mention of the protagonist. What's worse than him? The priestess decided to turn the conversation in a positive direction and asked how things were going in the transformation hall. With his head down, the mage replied that he got an A grade, but unfortunately he couldn't get a C grade. His teammates tried to cheer him up and support him, but it looked ridiculous. The big-breasted priestess asked how Wang Yu was doing after visiting the transformation hall. However, the girl had a sad look on her face and didn't know what to say. The guild members started talking among themselves. Does she really have a level lower than C? The level of the quest directly affected attribute bonuses and skill unlocks. To herself, the mage thought she had failed. The mage tried to cheer the girl up, telling her that she needed to work harder. Either way, she could always count on him, but not getting a C was a complete failure on her part. Suddenly, she surprised him by replying that she wasn't upset about her new S-class at all. At that moment, the guild members opened their mouths in surprise. No one could believe what the team leader had just said. Why didn't she tell them before? As it turned out, the girl had good reason to keep quiet. The reason was that her current mission had unlocked a hidden class that had never been seen before. In Magician's opinion, the girl was wrong. Her latent abilities couldn't have come from a career change. However, while the girl was in the lobby, the system informed her that thanks to the Vanguard emblem item, she could upgrade her current profession of Quick Archer to Vanguard Shadow. The mission will also change. Surprised, she stared at the interface and couldn't understand what was happening. After all, it was the same emblem Ningfeng had given her earlier. He seemed so confident at that moment. Did he really know about this before? Well, in that case, thank you for the gift. I decide to improve my performance. The girl finished her story, and the priestess didn't understand how her friend could make such responsible decisions so easily. The mage was the most shocked of all. He'd never heard of a Vanguard Shadow before. Maybe this one really was some kind of system bug. Of course, he was just jealous. Wang Yu calmly told him that there was no need to worry about their problems. While all the team members were happy to hear her news, the mage was still burning with envy and anger. At that moment, the last thing he wanted was to get the same emblem and change his profession. We are transported to a profession change room, where the protagonist performs a rite of initiation for new skills. The emblem lights up in bright sunlight. Now his characteristics have improved and some new skills have been added. His control over the power of darkness had greatly increased, and he could now control forbidden spells with ease. Meanwhile, Duan quietly stood aside and waited for his boss. Suddenly, someone else appeared in that long stone corridor. It was the silhouette of a familiar girl. She recognized the fighter. They had met before. Perhaps he was guarding Ninfen. She was well aware that this person possessed the power of the fourth transformation, which was a great rarity. However, she didn't understand why this warrior was accompanying Ningfeng when he entered the profession transition hall. The previously familiar beauty, Teacher Qi, was also here. It was now up to her. She must use her trust to find out the truth from Ningfeng. She's sure that the young man would never be her enemy. Just as our two heroes stepped outside and were happily discussing what had happened, a familiar voice was heard behind Ninfen's back. It was Teacher Qi greeting him. He curiously asked her what had happened and why she was here. Suddenly, Duan left, and Teacher Qi explained that she wanted to ask Ningfeng something. The girl asked if he had completed the first transformation. A cold sweat ran down the protagonist's back. He didn't want to withhold this information, but they found out too quickly. Teacher Qi has always taken care of me, so she must not harm me. Ninfen smiled and said that was the way it was, and he didn't want many people to know about it. But the veteran teacher was very worried. Perhaps the student had fallen under the influence of the dark forces. Ninfen sweated even more. Why is she asking him that? Did she really expose his system? Beauty warned him that many people had been influenced by the forces of darkness, and now they were slowly turning into mutants. The protagonist breathed a sigh of relief. I'm definitely not a mutant, so you don't have to worry about me, Ningfeng said boldly. At that moment, the girl showed him the black stone in her palm that represented the test. The young man was invited to share a small amount of his energy to test how much darkness power he possessed. The protagonist was confused for a while. Such indecision on his part was not good. The young man replied that this was the first time he had encountered such a thing, so he was just a little nervous. The next second, His hand touched the stone and streams of energy began to spread in all directions. In an instant, there was no trace of the stone. Ninfin's face was filled with horror. Teacher Chi was shocked. This rock is broken. The young man didn't understand what was happening. Not long ago, a girl had received this stone from her friend, and the authorities used it as a test to declare mutants. Whenever someone touched it, the stone began to shake. The more it shook, the higher the amount of darkness power in the person. At that moment, Teacher Chi was confused. She didn't know what to do in this case. No one could believe that this was even possible. The rock was shattered into small pieces. Ninfin started to make excuses. Does Chi Wei not trust him? After all, they have known each other for a long time. The beauty thought for a moment. He lost his parents at a young age, but he still managed to keep such a positive attitude. She anxiously told him that she trusted Ninfin, but that it was her duty to report all that had happened to her superiors. In the event of a negative report, the young man began to consider an escape plan to leave the city. But that wasn't all. The girl was holding some kind of glowing object in her hand. With a smile, Chi Wei said that she had prepared a gift for her student to congratulate him on his first transformation. Ninfin thanked his teacher and said that he had a gift for her as well. It was a rare orange quality item that required a level 30 for its bearer. Belle couldn't believe her eyes. Such an item could save a life in a critical moment. The girl tried to refuse, citing the value of such an item, but Ninfin was insistent. Then the young man turned and said that a friend was waiting for him. At that point, he was ready to end the conversation. For Chi Wei, it was time to say goodbye to her former student. It seems that at that moment, she realized that her student had surpassed his teacher. He's much stronger than she ever thought him to be. Meanwhile, in the adventurer's office, as Su Lan looked at the pieces of black stone, she realized that she had never seen anything like this before. If his superiors considered Ninfin a threat, his life could have been in danger. Suddenly, Su Lan suggested that they end this conversation with Chi Wei. Maybe this disciple has surpassed the current understanding of power at this point. If he is really strong, you should try to defeat him without making him angry. After that, an aide was instructed to finish all the information and research on Ninfin. Teacher Chi agreed with this wording. In this case, they'd better focus on the martial arts master who accompanied our protagonist. We're transported to Ninfin's house. Duan noticed that his boss looked upset. Ningfeng had just learned from Teacher Chi that the investigation against him had been closed. In Duan's opinion, this was good news. The young man was afraid to raise his level any further. Now, he has attracted the attention of the authorities. He might be in trouble. Such answers from Ningfeng once again convinced Duan that his boss was different from ordinary people. Suddenly, he suggested to his boss to pump skills in secret realms that were not in the official records. Recently, there have been anomalies in the world that have led to new realms. Those that are not supervised by the authorities due to lack of resources have been occupied by evil forces, Duan told his boss. After saying that, a glimmer of hope appeared in Ningfeng's eyes. Duan said that he had data on the 2 dungeons, the hidden realms, but he could get more information. Of course, it would be better for Duan to find out everything on his own and for the protagonist to stay in the shadows. Ninfin decided to relieve his stress and go to the market tomorrow to sell some more loot. We are taken to the hotel, Duan's temporary home. He returned late from a meeting with his boss. Suddenly, the young man is greeted by an unknown man. It turned out to be the mayor of this town, who thanked Duan for helping him fight the monsters. He asked the young man to stay in the city for a few more days. The man smiled broadly and continued to flatter his interlocutor. After that, he gave Duan a special certificate with high privileges. The mayor was at Duan's disposal for any help and support he might need in the future. Of course, it was a recruitment because other cities had tried to do the same thing earlier, but Duan had turned them down. The young man accepted the card and thanked the mayor. The mayor was incredibly happy with the outcome of the negotiations. But Duan wanted to use this card himself. He wanted to present it to his boss. The mayor smiled broadly. He didn't know about Ninfin's situation. He was sent by that lonely shadow, Su Lan. Now even Duan's housing problem would be solved, and he would no longer have to live in a hotel. As usual, the protagonist continued to play games on his phone and didn't notice how late it was. Finally, He decided to check his class chat and was surprised to find an active discussion about his personality. From their correspondence, Ninfin understood that they wanted to go to college and pass the exam. The young man had never thought that he could surpass them so quickly. But the next two messages caught his attention, and he became suspicious. How could this anonymous person see his account activity? Why do they even care? Unexpectedly, at such a late hour, Teacher Chi interceded for her student. The protagonist laughed out loud. He hadn't expected such help from his teacher. Judging from the correspondence, many cities in the country had already experienced monster invasions that caused many casualties. Our hero expected to rest for a few days, but he had no idea that it was already so serious. A cute girl named Young Xian had not yet recovered from her wounds, but she had already gone to work. Behind her back, the career woman who took advantage of her co-workers' bad looks and made some harsh remarks suddenly appeared. A more experienced co-worker rebuked her for going to work just to get ahead. This was too much for the inexperienced girl, and she began to make loud excuses. With a haughty voice, the career woman said that this guy was just a common thief who had set his sights on a set of fourth-tier transformation clothes. Beautiful Young Xian became even more protective of Ningfeng. But as for our hero, she heard even more details about his background and what a bad person he really is. The next second, right in front of that evil girl's eyes, a huge spike appeared from the ground. It was our hero who asked for forgiveness for such an act, but he could not control himself. The manager started yelling at him. How dare he use his spells in the mall? She called security. The beautiful Young Xian tried to convince Ningfeng to leave the building, but the young man told her not to worry. However, she kept telling him not to look for trouble. At that time, 3 men were running down the hallway. Mr. Wang appeared, accompanied by 2 guards. The man was displeased with our hero's behavior. With a stern voice, Ningfeng said that he was aware of the investigation against him and that Mr. Wang had called him a thief. The man replied that Ningfeng himself knew best. He then gave an order and 2 guards rushed at our hero. Suddenly, Ningfeng pulled out the same black card he had received from the city's mayor. It was a black card of the trading center. No one could believe their eyes. It's probably just a fake. Ningfeng replied that it was a gift from Mayor Tsai, and this card definitely has a strong weight. In a rude manner, the man tried to ask Ningfeng where he got the card from, but the young man hid it in his pocket. In that case, Mr. Wang should make an important phone call to find out the details. Meanwhile, security guards blocked the entrance to the exchange, so no one could get in or out. The mayor of the city, Mr. Tsai, was on the line. He was informed that someone was looking for information on a card he had personally given to Mr. Nin. At this point, the merchant realized that the conflict was escalating into big trouble for him. The tone of the mayor's voice changed dramatically. He sensed that something was amiss, and now he wanted to know the details himself. Did someone dare to insult Ninfeng? He pounded his fist on the table and said that he'd be there soon to find out for himself. The merchant could not understand what kind of relationship the mayor had with Ningfeng, so why was he so angry? The merchant immediately remembered Duan and wanted to call him. In case of a conflict, the mayor will show his respect to this fighter as well. Meanwhile, the protagonist and the girl sat quietly in the mall's break room. Just as suddenly, Duan and the mayor named Kai appeared in front of them. Ningfeng didn't understand the reason for the mayor's appearance in this place, but the girl was the most surprised. She didn't understand why Ningfeng knew the 4th transformation fighter and the mayor of the city. The 2 men looked at the career woman with a sinister gaze. It was the first time that she had ever been so scared, and she didn't understand why they were looking at her with such a stare. The next second, however, she was even more frightened at the sight of her boss. As if dying, Mr. Wang lost his energy and realized that it was over for him now. Ningfeng didn't see any point in apologizing to these people because they wouldn't change anyway. With a powerful gesture, Mayor Tsai pointed in the direction of our hero's 2 tormentors. He just fired them. The once seasoned merchant and his assistant could not believe what they had just heard. Suddenly, the merchant delivered a powerful fist to the girl's face, saying it was all because of her. Seeing such a scene, the mayor of the city made a gesture with his hand and asked the security to remove the 2 idiots. After a while, all our heroes were quietly drinking tea in a special VIP room. Mayor Tsai noticed that this girl had a great relationship with the main character. This could play out in the future. The girl was amazed at how easily and gracefully her new friend communicated with the big people. The mayor thanked the young lady for her hard work. The exchange will not forget her service. Yang Xian blushed with embarrassment. She'll keep trying. The man once again thanked Ning Feng and said that all of Ning Feng's problems were his personal business. While the tea was being prepared, the mayor noticed that Mr. Ning was looking at a special catalog. Maybe he liked something. Ning Feng's reply surprised the mayor. It turned out that he was looking for a special item called the Final Relic. But from the reactions and facial expressions of the mayor and Duan, Ning Feng realized that they didn't know about this item. As it turned out, the main character only found out about this relic yesterday and thought it was something new and very interesting. The skill book my chi teacher gave me earlier is used by mages to temporarily restore mana during battles. Ning Feng was curious to see which forbidden spell he would now possess. After that, a bright white light appeared in the middle of his forehead, illuminating the entire environment. The system reported that he now had a new passive skill. In this message, there was a mention of the last relic. That was why Ning Feng was so interested in it. He had never heard of it before, and there was no mention of such a valuable item in the system. Before leaving, the mayor told our heroes that the next time there was no such rush, he would personally receive Ning Feng at his office in Luanhua City. After that, the man activated the magic scroll and flew away in the same second. The hero was hungry, so his new friend offered to take him to his house for dinner. It turned out that Duan was now living in a huge luxury mansion assigned to him by the city. Ning Feng was amazed to see such a rich decoration. Duan explained that people who had reached the 4th level of transformation received special encouragement and treatment. He was willing to share this mansion with his boss. With a laugh in his voice, Ning Feng replied that he would earn some more money and buy a villa nearby so that they could be neighbors. Duan offered his boss money, but the boss replied that he could not use his finances. However, the young man already had enough crystals to buy the most luxurious villa. He might still need the money and crystals, so everything should be done gradually and carefully. It seemed that at this point, our two heroes could finally relax and unwind. Duan had just invited 2 fine chefs to prepare dinner. But at that moment, the phone in Duan's pocket rang. It turned out to be Mayor Jan on the other end. He was bothering the young man for a reason. It turned out that there was a special investigation going on after all the incidents. They wanted some information. Seeing the emotionless expression on Duan's face, Ning Feng tensed up again. The experienced fighter realized that he needed to consult with his boss first, so he told the man that he couldn't talk to him right now. The mayor replied that he understood perfectly because he had called at a bad time. Anyway, he's expecting a call. Now the protagonist learns that a special investigation team has been set up to look into what happened in the city. We learn about a new character who was quite unfriendly towards our hero. He could smell the mysterious hero's stench everywhere. Meanwhile, in the boardroom, the head of the committee wondered if anyone there had seen the so-called mysterious hero. The mysterious shadow looked down and replied that she had not seen him. In that case, the man doesn't understand why the rumors are true, how this certain someone could have saved our city. The girl explained that it was mainly because the invasion had been stopped, and the mutants who helped the invasion had been destroyed. Still, the man's stern look was unyielding. He disagreed with such conclusions. Without a thorough investigation, they can't rely on it as evidence. After all, there were invasions in other cities at that time as well. In that case, what was that mysterious player doing? The girl squeezed her eyes even tighter and bowed her head even lower, as if she could read Chi Wei's mind. She realized that the mysterious shadow had used its power to change the information that had something to do with our hero. At that moment, the mayor burst into the office and scolded him, telling him that Duan was busy today. The head of the committee became even angrier. He really didn't like these free players who didn't follow any rules or regulations. He was angry and called Duan insulting names. Then he put his hand on the table and said that he would personally handle the investigation. We are transported to a secret realm called the Treacherous Graveyard. With a confident stride, the man walked toward the 2 guards in his metal armor. The men met him and told him that the entrance to this dungeon was closed. With a welcoming smile, the warrior greeted them and explained that he was a representative of the investigation team. In that case, he was free to enter for his investigation. They wished him well on his way. In a moment, the man was inside and saw a very interesting image in front of him. It wasn't the first time he had been here, but the extent of this destruction was impressive even to him. What force could completely destroy such a powerful secret realm? There were remnants of the power of darkness everywhere, and even after so much time, it was still very powerful. Suddenly, the man's appearance and voice changed drastically. He was alone here, and this graveyard seemed quite fascinating to him. There were energy remnants everywhere. Now, with his special spells, he was able to summon an evil spirit that appeared before him expectantly. The man was just waiting for it. As expected from a king-level threat, everything around him was filled with immense power. It was all his now. For a while, we are transported back to Villa Duan. Our hero continued to play games on his phone as usual. Suddenly, the system informed him that the last relic has been found, but his sixth sense told him that something wasn't right. Something could have contacted the aura. He must find out exactly what it is. If he concentrates, the connection to this phenomenon will become clearer. He must find the place. Without thinking long, he grabbed his jacket and headed for the exit. Duan was surprised to learn that his boss was going somewhere in the evening on very important business. But it wouldn't take long, Ninfin assured him. As they parted, the protagonist waved goodbye to his colleague and asked him not to waste too many game points on his phone. The protagonist's taxi drove off in an unknown direction. However, according to the navigator, it was somewhere near the treacherous cemetery. At that moment, Ningfeng's inner senses told him that the thing seemed to have started moving. We are transported back to the entrance of this very secret realm of the treacherous graveyard. The guards were very surprised to see an unidentified monster that posed a great threat. The men trembled with fear. They had never seen such an ugly and monstrous monster before. It turned out that the same man from earlier in the graveyard had formed a symbiosis with this monster, and it was now a single creature calling for help. At that moment, the hero's car stopped at the entrance to the restricted area. He was greeted by guards who said that no one was allowed to enter. But Ninfin didn't seem to hear that. He looked at his phone and was determined. His gut told him that the thing he was looking for had stopped. Meanwhile, the ugly creature in the man's face was screaming loudly for help. At that moment, a famous team accompanied by famous heroes had already approached the monster. The girls could not hide their astonishment at this terrifying sight. They didn't understand what was going on. Judging from the fallen trees in the area and the smoke billowing in all directions, it was clear that this place was a battlefield. It turned out that the mysterious shadow was lying on Chi Wei's lap almost unconsciously. She was badly injured and was about to lose all her life force. With Ningfeng's gift, Chi Wei was able to shorten the treatment time and completely restore the girl's strength. But right now, it's a critical situation. After a while, Su Lan's condition improved. She wondered where the monster had gone. It turned out to be in the direction of the city. The mayor promised to send reinforcements, but Chi Wei wasn't sure if our heroes would get there in time. The mysterious shadow was well aware that martial arts master Duan didn't stand a chance against this monster. His strength was equal to their own, and at that very moment, someone's swift and powerful strike almost destroyed that huge and ugly monster. It was our hero who was about to finish what he had started. It turns out that this is the final relic. For a second, Ninfin hesitated. He didn't know which forbidden spell to use to destroy this monster once and for all. Meanwhile, his enemy wasted no time, lunging at Ninfin with its giant claw. A sharp claw seemed to pierce our hero's head. The young man stood firm, but suddenly a protective shield appeared over his body, blocking the powerful blow. How is that possible? Such tremendous power. Even the monster was taken aback. New system notification. The last relic has been found. Does the host want to start her takeover? The protagonist was serious and determined. He immediately clicked yes and confirmed his agreement. Was proximity really one of the requirements for absorption? His gaze changed dramatically and his pupils dilated. A bright flash illuminated everything around him, and he began to absorb the huge streams of energy coming directly from the monster. The terrifying creature began to disintegrate before his eyes. In its pieces, The young man saw the reflection of incredibly powerful heroes of the past who had imparted their abilities and precious items to him. Now, all of his characteristics had improved by 100. Ninfeng was overjoyed. He hadn't expected such a big surprise. However, he seemed to have swallowed something else because his head hurt so much. Some strange images appeared, as if he was under the influence of some forbidden substances. At that moment, Duan appeared and loudly asked his boss what could have happened here. As if nothing had happened, the protagonist replied that he had just destroyed the monster he had stumbled upon earlier. Near the remains of that monster, a man lay in a semi-living state. Now it's up to Duan to take care of everything and deal with all the consequences of this battle. Our hero patted his friend on the shoulder and said that the cleanup was now up to him. A second later, he seemed to vanish into thin air and flew away at an incredible speed. Duan was even more surprised because this speed surpassed all skill-based professions. He realized that the boss was completely in line with his reputation. "We're being taken to the city jail." It turned out that the monster was this man, and he had already confessed to everything. He was now handcuffed. He accidentally discovered a monster in a secret realm, and then he was able to control the powers of darkness and make them his own. But after that, he miscalculated a bit, because as the investigation showed, after he entered the dark realm and was able to absorb the dark forces, he didn't expect the monster to lose control. After this story, the mayor was delighted. He was happy to hear everything he had just been told. There was indeed a certain mysterious hero. Su Lan smiled. Chi Wei was also pleased, but she didn't show it. The mayor asked Mr. Duan if he had ever seen the mysterious hero. With a calm voice, the young man replied that he had met him once. Such words did not go unnoticed by our beauties, who were greatly surprised. The mayor of the city offered a deal. He said that if the mysterious hero would stay in the city, he would do everything to satisfy his needs. With an exhalation, Duan looked down and reported that the mysterious hero preferred to stay in the shadows. It was a very good idea that Duan and his boss had thought of everything beforehand and dumped all the consequences of what happened on a certain mysterious hero. There is no evidence, so no one can verify anything. After hearing this answer, the mayor was a little upset. He was counting on winning the mysterious hero's favor. Duan added that the mysterious hero had relatives in town who would take care of him. It's also worth considering that this powerful warrior doesn't want to be disturbed. Su Lan bit down on those words. She believed that the mysterious hero had powerful relatives, and Chi Wei believed that the mysterious hero was much older than Ningfeng. We're transported back to Ninfen's house. Like any man, Ninfen was thinking about the most important thing while standing in the shower. It turns out that the last relic was the remains of the slain Dark Lord of the Secret Realm, a terrifying monster. And all the images that had appeared before his eyes were absorbed fragments of the memories of the past ruler of darkness. In that case, if I don't want to be a ruler of darkness, what do I need all these things for? But don't give them up so quickly. Some of them seem to be quite useful. As the dark power accumulates, the secrets of the realm, the dungeon, will gradually become stronger. If time and space cannot withstand the invasion, the world will end. The training of the awakened ones in our time is not complete, so there are very few people who can achieve the fourth transformation. It also seems that the professions of the awakened ones haven't reached their optimal form yet. This is very strange, because there does not seem to be anything good in the information obtained from the memories of the Emperor. If this continues, humanity is doomed. At that moment, our hero's thoughts were interrupted by a phone call. It was Mrs. Wong, and our protagonist was very happy to hear it. He wondered what good news she had to tell him. The girl told him that she was inviting him to dinner tonight and that he should definitely come. She had successfully completed her career change. Our two heroes smiled at each other as they talked. Ninfen accepted her invitation. At the exit of the transformation hall, Madame Wong was greeted by her team members. She was surprised to receive such a wonderful welcome. They congratulated her on her second transformation. It was as if the mage was oblivious to the shouts of the enthusiastic crowd in the city congratulating their heroes. He offered Manhwa dinner at one of the best restaurants in town. But the girl replied that she had other plans for the evening and wished him luck in celebrating the event alone. The mage was surprised. Was it something that couldn't be postponed? because completing a mission is very hard work. The girl turned around and replied that she had some very important business that she could not postpone. The mage thought the girl was being arrogant and became angry. The priestess tried to calm him down, for their leader was not at all what he thought she was. She must have a good reason. The mage's next question shocked the entire group. Maybe they were tired of running after their leader. According to him, she was not only able to complete the S-level profession change, but also awaken the hidden profession. And the gap between the two will continue to grow. In that case, the day may come when she finally leaves the team. We are transported to a restaurant where our two heroes have retired for a pleasant evening. Ninfeng can hardly believe his eyes. The price of roast lamb here was quite affordable, and its taste was incredible. There was a lot of meat. It turned out that all you had to do to taste the delicious dishes was to follow Mrs. Wang. The girl thanked her friend for the emblem he had given her earlier. Meanwhile, the main character devoured one piece of meat after another. He looked away from his food for a second. She's talking about the same emblem I gave her earlier. Looking at this piece of mutton, the young man was lost in thought. Wang Yu was curious as to where the other emblems might be, but Ningfeng just laughed in response. With sadness in her voice, the girl told me that she was very sorry that they could not be purchased. Then she could give each member of the group an emblem. The protagonist was very happy to hear such words. She didn't forget to include him. In such a dangerous time, it is very helpful to have self-defense skills. Unexpectedly, the young man replied that it was quite difficult to raise his level alone. All he needed was the girl's protection. He was just teasing her. Wang Yu's face grimaced in intense pain the moment she took the wands in her right hand. Ninfeng couldn't understand what had happened to her. Mrs. Wang replied that she was fine. She just hurt herself a little while her team was out on a mission. Of course, she got the treatment she needed. But considering that it was an S-level mission and the damage from the boss was considerable, she will need some time to recover. Their evening was interrupted by an unexpected phone call. The protagonist didn't know who was talking to him. It was an unfamiliar and angry voice. On the other end of the phone, the man insisted in an angry voice that Ninfeng tell him where he got the emblem. The next second, the protagonist hung up. The girl didn't know what was going on. With a surprised face, Ningfeng informed her that someone had just asked him in an angry voice where he got the emblem he had given her earlier. Wang Yu was very surprised because she hadn't told anyone about it. As soon as our protagonist was distracted by a new piece of meat, an unknown number called his phone again. In an even more menacing voice, the man on the other end of the phone informed him that if our hero continued to hang up, there would be serious consequences. Ningfeng was starting to lose patience, but he couldn't make a scene as long as Wang Yu was by his side. So he hung up the phone. Both of our heroes were overjoyed, especially Ningfeng, who had gotten very drunk. They left the restaurant. Wang Yu wondered if she should have escorted Ningfeng home, but the young man replied with a grin that it was just a prank and nothing to worry about. Late in the afternoon, they said their goodbyes and went their separate ways. We're being taken to Ninfeng's house. As he went to the door, the young man put the key in the keyhole as usual. He opened the door and his sleepy body stepped inside. The next second, his eyes widened in surprise. Everything was turned upside down. The place was a mess. He heard footsteps nearby. Someone was in his apartment. The stranger greeted him and told him that the landlord was finally home. Ningfeng was very angry. Was it really the same man who had called him? Tossing aside our hero's journal, the man replied that he was the one who had warned our hero of the serious consequences. If he had just answered his questions honestly, this visit would not have happened. With a stern voice, the protagonist inquired who had sent him. The man was furious. How could such an idiot talk to him like that? He called our hero a piece of trash who had just woken up. Or did he forget to show respect to those who were stronger than him?